Glory, honor, praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Chakadash. Double honors to the apostles, elders, the great millstone, who rule and teach well. Peace of salutation to the elect 144 first fruit. All right, so this is going to be another series that I'm going to start, pretty much a crash course of what's going on right now, primarily speaking about the Strait of Hormuz. So pretty much this is going to be like if you are kind of confused with what's going on, why things are happening, I guess I'm going to do a part series here. So I'm going to start all the way back in February 28th, 2026 of this year when all of this started. So you're going to get a good grasp and understanding of what's going on, who started this, and the repercussions of starting this war. So Google, simple search, says based on reported events, United States and Israel launched a coordinated large-scale military campaign against Iran February 28, 2026. Operation Epic Fury, which I did do a lesson on if you want to go check that out on my page, targeted Iranian military infrastructure, nuclear sites, and leadership with a ceasefire in the conflict reported April 8, 2026, which lasted 10 hours. Now, the conflict, again, it began February 28, 2026. This is just a brief overview, an AI overview, of course, what you see here. But what happened on that day, they launched over like 900 missiles attacking different nuclear sites, bases, cities, things that net schools. That was a big topic. That was a big headline. How America hit a Iranian school full of schoolgirls and killed almost pretty much all of them. And then, of course, they later on they killed or they took out Khamenei later on, which I did a lesson on that, and I titled it "They May Have Taken Out Khamenei Much Too Early, and it can backfire," which it did. Now, the thing when America and Israel decided to do this coordinated strike, there's one thing that they left out, and that's understanding the Strait of Hormuz. Even though, which I might mention this in part 2 of this, even though America has a lot of naval forces over in the around the Qatar docking area, UAB area, they have a big naval force there to monitor the Strait of Hormuz. All they can do is monitor. Doesn't mean they can actually seize it because Iran has full hold on that. Iran didn't necessarily strike back first, even though we have seen them strike. They didn't necessarily strike back. What they did was immediately close the Strait of Hormuz. So on February, so Iran effectively closed the Strait of Hormuz on February 28, 2026, following the start of military conflict with U.S. and Israel. The IRGC reaffirmed the closure April 18, 2026, threatening to keep it blocked until U.S. lifts its blockade on Iranian ports. So, Iran understood the assignment. You attack, we attack. You attack, we attack in a way that's going to attack your pockets, and it's going to attack the entire world's pocket. And the entire world is going to be against you, American and Israel, because you're the one who attacked us. Now, everybody's not getting their oil. So, in turn, what did this do? It spiked up the crude oil prices. Right now, this is a real time price. It is about $108 a barrel. Now, $108 a barrel is a lot, taking the fact of, and back in January 2026, the cost of a barrel was $61. Okay. Then the attack in February 2020, so right here we'll go 2026, February 26th, 2026, it was at 70. A few days later, 77. A few days later, 81. A few days later, 87. Probably a few weeks later, 107. Going into the end of March, it hit 112. The last day of March, it hit 118 as a peak. Then we're going all the way up to, let's see, yep, 118 was the peak. Now we're sitting at 108. And this is all because America and Israel struck um, Iran. Therefore, they retaliated. Of course, we saw their strikes on Israel. They pretty much plummeted Israel. But the first thing they did was not send missiles. They cut off the oil, okay? And then they started their attacks, attacking United States bases, attacking Israel bases, or just the entire country. So with that strait being closed, I'm just going through all the aftermath. Price of oil went up. Iraq's oil paralysis, pretty much their oil production paralyzed, a self-inflicted wound and a gift to Tehran. So pretty much Iraq had to shut their oil production down. Next, Qatar Energy declares force majeure, if I'm saying that correctly, on some of the LNG contracts due to Iran. Pretty much legally, what that means is we cannot fulfill our contracts because the Strait of Hormuz is closed. Now, you're kind of getting the point here, right? I'm mentioning Iraq, I'm mentioning Qatar, all right? The countries that use the Strait of Hormuz, and it's pretty much the countries that supply pretty much oil for the world: Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, Kuwait, Iraq, and Iran. All of those are big name players when it comes to supplying the world with oil. And if you look at a map of the Strait of Hormuz, matter of fact, let's get a world map. All right. Let's do maps real quick. All right. We're going to zoom in right here. Let me zoom out a little bit. So as you can see, oh my gosh, these pop-ups. As you can see right here, you got Iraq, Iran, Kuwait, Qatar, UAE, and Saudi Arabia. Bahrain, however you pronounce that, that's actually, I'm gonna mention this in part 2. That's actually where the United States Navy is docked at. And right here is the Strait of Hormuz, just a 21-mile strait. 21 miles is shutting down the entire world. 21 miles is shutting down the entire world. All right, so Qatar they declared this and could not continue any contracts. All right, again, why do they have to do that? Because this is a dead end. It's like a cul-de-sac. All the world's oil that is produced by Saudi, Kuwait, Iraq, Iran, Qatar, which they produce. Qatar produces pretty much liquefied natural gas, and Qatar pretty much fuels Europe's houses. If they don't have that natural gas, the houses don't get electric or energy. Also, too, they fuel Asian factories. Okay, a lot of Japan and Chinese oil goes through the strait as well, because once they get out of this and get to the Gulf of Oman, it's free selling. All right, you're entering to the Arabian Sea. All right, and then you can go whichever way you need to go to get to wherever you need to get to. Iran understood the assignment. You touch us, I shut everything down, and I ruin global economy, and I don't give a damn. That's what's happening. This was the inception of the war. All right? So that takes us to Pakistan. They closed all schools. It says to take other measures to cut energy as oil spikes. Right? Because if you don't have the oil, if you don't have the natural gas, you don't have the energy. Okay? this trickle down, down. So you see how this domino effect. So now all these countries are doing things to save face because oil is pretty much depleting at a rapid pace because Iran has shut everything down. No one's being supplied. So the IEA, which is pretty much a world. Well, I'll read it here. It says the 32 member countries of the International Energy Agency unanimously agreed today to make, and this came out 11th of March 2026, to make 400 million barrels of oil from their emergency reserves available to the market to address disruptions in oil markets stemming from the war in the Middle East. That lasted 4 days. That 400 million barrels gave enough cushion for 4 days. 4 days. Which takes us to our first precept in Jeremiah 49 and 20. Therefore, hear the counsel of the Lord that he hath taken against Edom, which are the self-proclaimed white people today, the Edomites, all right, the Caucasian race. It says, in his purpose that he hath purposed against the inhabitants of Teman, surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitations desolate with them. And who's the least of the flock? All right. The least of the flock are the Amalekites, which you can read about the inception of the Amalekites in Genesis, the 36th chapter, which Amalek, if I'm not mistaken, was a grandson of Esau. All right. So let's go down here and look real quick. Because in these early generations of Esau, the father of the Edomites, Genesis 36 and 9. In Mount Seir, it says, verse 10, it says, and these are the name of Esau's son, Eliphaz, and the son of Adah, the wife of Esau. It says, Reuel, the son of Bashemeth, the wife of Esau, and the sons of Eliphaz were Teman, Omar, Zepho, and Gatam, and Kenaz. And Timnah was a concubine to Eliphaz, Esau's son, and she bare Eliphaz Amalek. There you go. That's where you get Amalek. That was a grandson of Esau. Amalek is the least of the Edomites. And Edomites, they're not called tribes like the Israelites are. We're called, that's why we have 12 tribes. Esau are dukes when you go down in this particular chapter. They're dukes of Edom. So all these Edomites that we're talking about are different dukes that we see today, which I can scroll down and show you some right now. This is verse 15. These are the dukes of the son of Esau, the son of Eliphaz, the firstborn son of Esau, Duke Teman, Duke Omar, Duke Zepho, Duke Kenaz, Duke Korah, Duke Gatam, and Duke Amalek. See, these are dukes. All right, they call themselves Duke. All right, they don't call themselves tribes. All right, which pretty much, let's get the word Duke really quickly. All right, so Duke, a sovereign prince. And then, you see that? I might do a separate lesson on this, why they call themselves Duke. It's a fitting name because it's really an omen. It's a title, but it's an omen type title. A duke is a very proud thing. They've been proud from the jump. A sovereign prince. So all of them are calling themselves dukes, so they consider themselves sovereign. They don't consider themselves almost in a sense related to one another. That's why there were so many infightings when you go into Edomite history and rulership. You can read about Edomite rulership in 2nd Ezra, the 11th chapter, and especially when you get down to the fewer chapters, which I wish I can go on that site again, but I think it's still shut down. No, it's back up. Look at that. All right. Let's go to 2nd Ezra, the 11th chapter. Let's scroll down. I'm just reading real quick. Give me a second. I just want to see, make sure I'm correct. I think I'm close. Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, right here, right here. This is what I want. This is Second Ezra chapter 11 and 25. Just to prove the point to you why they were called dukes and why they were so sovereign. They had a bloodthirsty taste for power. It didn't matter if you were, you know, kin or not. Didn't matter. You see it today. Russia against the United States. Russia are Edomites. They're part of a Duke of Edom. Okay. Uh, the state of Israel. Those are the Amalekites. You know, and then of course you got America, which are ran by Edomites and things of that nature. But anywho, this is second Ezra chapter 11 verse 25. It says, and I beheld, and lo, the feathers that were under the wing thought to set themselves up and to have the rule. Yeah, IUIC, watch this. I'm just going to give y'all a little fraction of the correct breakdown of Second Ezra, the 11th chapter, where the fuck Bishop Nathaniel was saying was wonky as hell and was extremely incorrect when he spoke about the eagle and the feathers, the 12 feathers, according to this particular breakdown. It was just way off. Verse 26, and I beheld, and lo, there was one set up, but shortly it appeared no more. So pretty much, let's go to verse 27. And the second was sooner away than the first. So pretty much verse 25, 26, and 27 is speaking about the year of the three emperors. Matter of fact, let's look it up real quick. The year of the three emperors, Rome. Year of the four emperors, Salakia. All right, let's go to it. Year of the four emperors, AD 69. It says, was the first civil war of the Roman Empire, which four emperors ruled in succession: Galba, Otho, Vitellius, and Vespasian, which Vespasian was the beginning and the inception of the Flavian dynasty, which you got Vespasian, Titus, and then Domitian in that order. Okay? So going back to Second Ezra, just to break it down a little bit more, when you go to verse 26, that's speaking about Galba. All right? When you go to verse 27, that's speaking about Otho. All right? So you got to understand these things and understand the scripts. Okay? And then you can scroll down to verse 31. Verse 31 is speaking about Vespasian. All right? And it says, and behold, the head was turned with them that they were with it, and did eat up the two feathers under the wing that would have reigned. Also, too, yes, this is Vespasian, but also too, this is a reincarnation of Julius, because you have to understand the first part of the chapter, okay? Because verse 30 right here is speaking about the Flavian dynasty, which is also spoken up here in the earlier chapter. That's how you break down this part of Second Ezra, the 11th chapter. You need to stop, IUIC, you need to stop leading your people astray, but who's to say that's going to happen? But anywho, let's go back. All right, so we made that point. We understand, going back to the Google Maps, all these countries are the world producer of oils. Okay? About 25, matter of fact, I got another article here from the IEA.org, the actual place that disperses that 400 million barrels of oil in emergency reserves that only could hold these countries for 4 days. Right here, it says the Strait of Hormuz, through which an average of 20 million barrels per day of crude oil and oil products were shipped in 2025. So 20 million barrels per day go through this 21-mile strait. Okay? Goes through that 21-mile strait. And now that is the inception of what we see here today. And the common denominator of everything that we're speaking right here is where the geography and all of this is playing out. right where the Lord said it would play out. This right here, what I got circling, is the Fertile Crescent. This is all Israelite land. Whether you believe it or fucking not. This is all Israelite land. This don't belong to them crazy ass Iraqi and Afghanistan ass niggas, them Ishmaelites. It don't belong to them. It don't belong to these Elamites. It don't belong. It don't belong to these Amalekites. It don't belong to them. All of this belongs to the Israelites. All right? We were kicked out. We go back to 70 AD, which you can read about in 2nd Ezra, the 11th chapter. IUIC. We're kicked over into the western shores of Africa, where we migrated and we civilized and we pretty much repopulated until the sub-Sahara slave trade and the sub-Atlantic slave trade happened. And that's how we came over to this godforsaken fucking place called the United States of America. All right? That's how we got there. But all of this belongs to us. And again, the common denominator is the Valley of Jehoshaphat, which is spoken about in the book of Joel. And that's why all of this is happening over here. So that's part one to get you the understanding of what's going on in the Middle East. All right, so Lord willing, this is edifying. I'm going to give all glory, honor, and praises to Yahweh, Bashem, Yahweh Shai, Bashem, HaKadosh. Double honors to the apostles, the elders, great millstone, rule and teach well. Peace, love, salutation to the elect, 144 first fruit. Till the next time, I'm going to say shalom, and like always, repent, for Yahweh Shai is coming back sooner than what me and you believe. All right, shalom.